you gamers out there that long for the days of basic titles that tell you exactly what you're about to play, let's go on a little journey with Mr. Run and Jump. I know that the Steam description is just what would have been on the back of the box of a game cartridge as a kid, but when reading Mr. Run and Jump, it really harkens back to a time when the descriptions make no sense when taken out of context. But as gamers, we jumped on board anyway. Help Mr. Run and Jump defeat the terrifying void and collect all the power gems from the realms of color. This is something that would only make sense to gamers, but we know exactly what we're in for, and we're gonna have a heck of a time while we do it. Upon booting up Mr. Run and Jump, you'll see that it can be customized, and you can change it from Mr. to Miss or just plain old Run and Jump. No need to buy a whole new game. On top of changing the title, you can also customize the way that your character will look. You can stick with the basic design, or you can choose to have a top hat or a bow in your hair. None of this will change the actual gameplay of Mr. Run and Jump, or whatever you choose to call it, and instead it will always play the same, and that is a straightforward and very challenging 2D platformer. As you start playing Run and Jump, as I'm just going to refer to it going forward, it looks and plays exactly like an old Atari 2600 game. It starts off simply enough with your dog running away and you go after him, and that leads you to having to, yes, run and jump from screen to screen. You will eventually find your dog and he is near a colorful crack in the world, which then expands and now everything is super vibrant and glowing. A big portal opens up, which of course your dog runs into and you have to go after him again. This is where you are going to meet your new friend, Mr. Watch and Learn, who is a giant eye who will give you hints throughout the game. He's there basically to break down to tell you how to play the game, what your goals are, and then any new information that you'll need to know. The 2D platforming gameplay has you collecting blue shards that are pieces of a power orb that shattered during the transformation. If you do end up collecting every one of the blue shards in a particular level, you will get a power orb, although it is not needed to move on to the next level. Run and Jump is split up into 6 different worlds, and they are all assigned a different color: violet, blue, green, yellow, red, and dark. Each one of these worlds is a series of levels where you have 3 regular levels and 1 void level. The void stages are essentially the boss levels, where they're just like the regular ones, but now the void is slowly creeping in on you and you have to finish the level before it gets you. This is very similar to like Crash Bandicoot when you have the boulder chasing after you, and it effectively gives you a time limit to finish the level. Each level, whether it's standard or void, will be set up as a series of screens that need to be completed. Once you get to the next screen, if ever you die, that's where you'll restart, thankfully, and not have to redo the whole thing all over again. And you will be dying a lot. Run and Jump is a very difficult platforming game. Thankfully, there are some options when it comes to player assistance depending on what type of a challenge you're looking at while playing Run and Jump. You can adjust the frequency to be infrequent, frequent, or never happening at all, and this will spawn helpful items if ever you get stuck in an area. Essentially, if you die a certain number of times, something like a checkpoint or an invincibility star will appear. The invincibility star, for example, will make it just like Super Mario Bros., where you can't be killed for either a limited amount of time or until you get to the next screen. Unfortunately, if ever you do pick up that invincibility star, you will no longer be able to collect any more blue shards for the rest of that screen as well. Once a level is completed, whether you have used assistance or not, you'll be able to unlock the time trial mode, which means that you can replay it at any point, grab the stopwatch icon, and see how quickly you can finish the level. Each stage also has multiple extra hard screens that sometimes are even tricky to figure out how to even get to them, and if you can get through those screens, you'll unlock some bonus orbs. All of this comes together to make some great replayability for Run and Jump, because now you're trying to finish levels, collect all the shards, all the bonus orbs, and trying to see how quickly you can do it. I previously mentioned how getting all of the shards and doing any of this bonus stuff is not needed to be able to move on, and that was only partially true. That will allow you to get through the first 5 worlds, but if you want to be able to complete any of the levels in the Dark World, they do require a specific number of orbs to unlock each level. While 24 levels may not seem like a whole lot at first, I will say that each world definitely has its own unique feel to it, and they do a great job of slowly adding new mechanics and enemies to look out for. I'd say that each world took me roughly 1 hour to complete, but that also included me using a liberal amount of the player assistance, as I was definitely challenged while playing it. If you try to go through without using any of the assistance and you're trying to get some of the bonus stuff like collecting all of the orbs and doing the time trials, the developers themselves say that this offers you 30 plus hours of gameplay. I know that I've said it before and I've heard it in other reviews where, oh yeah, when I died I felt like it was all my fault and I just learned from it. And while I wish that I could say that that was the same for Run and Jump, Unfortunately, I do feel that the controls do have to take some partial blame as well. On the plus side, the movement and platforming itself is rather tightly controlled and doesn't feel overly floaty. It's just a matter of the actual button assignments. Essentially, what you're left with is the simplicity they were going for is both a blessing and a curse. The developers wanted to go for a nice 2-button control system, which sounds great in theory, but what you're left with is one button being for jump and the second button being for literally everything else. The button that's going to make you crouch to roll is the same button that makes you dive when you're in the air. So you need to be extremely precise on when you press that button, because if you press it too early, you thought you were just going to duck, but now you're diving into a pit and dying. And yes, it could be argued you would say that I should just get better and work on my timing, and you're not totally wrong. I just feel that I would have liked to have at least had the option to assign different abilities to other buttons on the controller. We have so many available to them, why limit yourself to only 2? As you essentially have a 2D game with its minimalist design that's not too dissimilar from the Atari Recharge games, there's not a whole lot needed for your graphical options. You have your usual resolution, refresh rate, whether it's full screen or windowed, and VSync. But you also, in terms of graphical effects, have the dreaded bloom. Now, I obviously say that jokingly. I know that there are people out there that will disagree with me and they enjoy when they see a nice bloom effect. I personally have just never been a fan and felt that it's usually overused, and this is no different. By default, with it cranked all the way up, it did hurt my eyes and I had to turn it down, which thankfully is an option. And eventually I just found myself turning it off completely and just playing the rest of the game that way. Your mileage may vary. Thankfully, we are back into positive territory as we talk about the music in Run and Jump. There are plenty of different tracks to listen to that change based on what level you're in, and they kind of use this like classic sound effects to be the basis of modernized music, but even that modernization seems a bit retro in its own way, almost like we're kind of like in a PlayStation 2 era. It's very cool, very well done, and I really enjoyed listening to them. Sometimes when I'm reviewing games, I'll take my Chromebook out and watch other videos or listen to other music while I'm playing. I never once did that while playing Run and Jump. I kept my headphones on and I listened to the music the whole time. Say what you will about the current era of Atari, as their games can definitely be hit or miss, but I found myself having a lot of fun with Mr. Run and Jump despite the high difficulty level. It does have some quirks, but with some great music and plenty for you to do and work toward, I find that this is easy to recommend for any fans of platforming games.